And now there is a minimum of 65 games that need to be played to be eligible for postseason awards. And all those awards go from the All NBA teams to MVP. Everything you can imagine that is a regular season award is affected by if you played 65 games in the season or not, which basically means if you have one bad injury like an ankle sprain that keeps you out for a month or two, then you are no longer eligible for the awards. And that's significant. And I believe Kevin mentioned it as a timely topic because LeBron James just recently missed his 18th game, which means that he is not eligible to make the All NBA team for the first time in a very, very long time. Actually, LeBron had made 21 consecutive All NBA teams. And now, because of this rule, he is not eligible. So, Jaevon, I want to get your thoughts. What do you think about the 65 game minimum for NBA awards?
I mean, they're probably going to change it back because LeBron, once LeBron starts missing shit like this, it's just like, all right, what are we doing? We just got to throw somebody else in there because this guy played more games than the other guy. But hey, there's this other guy. I don't know if you heard him multiple times. He's made the All NBA team for 20 plus years of his NBA career. And I don't know if there's anybody in the history that's done that. So, but he's not on the list because he is 40 plus years old and he's trying to play a game that's tailored for 19 to like 20, 19 to 30 year olds. And usually once you start to hit those mid 30s, you kind of start to tailor off a little bit. But no, he's still averaging 20. He's an all-star, by the way. Let's not get that misconstrued. Usually when you make an all-star team, you're usually kind of almost guaranteed. I wouldn't say guaranteed, but you're in really, really good spirits to make an all NBA team. Now, it may not be first team, but you're guaranteed. You're probably going to make one of those 3 all NBA teams. But now, since there's this new 65 game, you have to play a minimum of 65 games. Then it's gonna. I was looking at the MVP, like the MVP odds, and you're looking at guys like obviously LeBron's probably not gonna make because he was hurt, but guys like a Jokic who's in jeopardy of missing it, guys like Luka who's missed multiple games. You kind of start getting down the list, and it's like, all right, well, Donovan Mitchell, come on down. Can you hold this trophy for me and then raise it up? We'll get a picture of you and then be like, what's this for? Oh, we just need a picture of you holding the MVP award trophy. And then all of a sudden, Donovan Mitchell's been named MVP. Now, I'm not saying he's not good enough to win the award, but you're kind of starting to get to you're starting to get to a point where it's like this person's going to win it by default. Yeah. I love Jaylen Brown. I think Jaylen Brown's having an all NBA type season. I'm starting to see him, and he's going to win the MVP. And I'm just like, what? Like, I got a player who I do believe should be mentioned in MVP talks, not just because there are all these guys who are kind of getting excommunicated due to the fact that they haven't played enough games. It's Cade Cunningham. They're first in the East. I think he's been playing phenomenal. He's averaging 25 plus. I think he's averaging also double digit assists, almost triple double if I'm not mistaken. He's a guy I think should be in conversations, not just because he's one of the last guys standing, because that's kind of when it started to get down to. And that's not something the MVP award, and just when you go down the list all the way down to Bill Russell and Jerry West, these guys are like Hall of Famers that we're talking about. We can't just give the MVP award to anybody. And I'm not saying that it's going to. Usually that guy, when we're starting to get further down the list, they're obviously still an all-star. But when we start to get to Alperen Sengun and, like Jalen Brunson, and I'm not saying Jalen Brunson. I just don't think, there's there's levels to the MVP award. And I feel like it kind of starts to get really, really blurred lines when you start to implement that 65-game rule. And I think going back to when the rule was implemented, it was when I think it was when Joel Embiid missed a bunch of games, but he still won the MVP award. Everybody was like, "Oh, he only played this amount of games," but when he was healthy and playing, he was obviously the best player in the world at that time. Um, I just never really was a fan of the rule because injuries do happen. I think just because you do get hurt doesn't mean you're not one of the best players in the world. I mean, like we see guys like Kawhi Leonard who went off for like 30 in a quarter. Um, but just sometimes they're just riddled by injury. And I think that shouldn't hinder or stop somebody from getting all of the accolades that they deserve. Because when they are on the floor, they are as special as anybody in the world. So, I mean, even like guys like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, who's going to miss, he's missing time due to, I think, an abdomen injury.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he's going to miss that much time, given to the fact that it happened during an All-Star break. So, missed a little bit of time. Probably going to miss a little bit of time once his All-Star break is over. But I don't think it's going to be enough for him to be bowed out of any of the awards. So, and that when you start to miss time on awards, that goes into when people are going to renegotiate their contracts. Hey, I was an All NBA. I was this. I was that. I won this award. You're affecting people's bread at this point. So when you kind of break it all the way down, the grand scheme of things, the rule definitely has to be eliminated because when you got guys like literally LeBron James, oh yeah, just by the way, guys, how many times will you? How many times? Oh, I was All NBA 5 times. I was All NBA 7 times. But 6 times I was All NBA. That's really good. LeBron James 20 times All like 20 times is absolutely unheard of. So I think this is going to start to raise the eyebrow. Like, all right, guys, what the fuck are we really doing here? Like, why is LeBron not at least on it? Like, at minimum, LeBron is going to be on the third All NBA team. Literally, like, bare minimum. I get it. He missed a bunch of games, this, that, and the third. He's at least third team All NBA. He's not going to make an All NBA team. Like, that's just absolutely unheard of. It's like I was a child. I was in grade school the last time he did make an All NBA team. Just think about that for a second. I'm 27 years old. 27. It's almost 30 years I've been on this planet. LeBron's been All NBA the entire time. That for the majority, I've probably been watching basketball. He's been on an All NBA team. So I think this is probably going to have to hit the kicker. Like, all right, guys, we gotta tweak a couple of things here and there. So yeah, I think it's kind of stupid.
Yeah, LeBron James is greatness personified. And Jaevon, I'm really glad that you mentioned the contract implications that come from this rule because that's what I was going to mention. So you did it for me because I was listening to the Mind the Game podcast that is LeBron's podcast. Usually he hosted with Steve Nash, but Steve Nash has been away for a couple episodes. So he brought in Tyrese Halliburton as a guest host for a couple episodes. And they were talking about this, and Tyrese said, yeah, I hated it when it first came out because I was eligible for the Supermax if I made an All NBA team. And LaMelo and Anthony Edwards, the guys who he came into the league with in 2020, they all were trying to get the super duper max, but they had those contract terms that stated how much money their ceiling could be. And so now you have a guy like, I mean, Jaevon, you are our betting expert on this podcast. And I'll just mention this because you said LeBron James and how he made it in 21 straight seasons on the All NBA team. That is basically the best bet that you can make. That is a guarantee. Someone probably put their house on the fact that they thought LeBron was going to be an All NBA selection for the 22nd consecutive season. And now, because of this rule, someone is living in a box because of this rule. And so it's a shame. But Alex, what are your thoughts on this rule?
I'm kind of mixed about it because I know they did it for the 65. They did the 65 game limit to prevent not tanking. We just talked about tanking, load management. And so, but I also like it because I feel like it gives other guys who deserve like the all NBA nod some credit. So like for instance, like I always think of like Devin Booker. I think Devin Booker is so underrated, but that's because he plays on a kind of mediocre team in the heavy Western Conference, and I feel like he deserves more All-Star. I mean not All-Star, All NBA nods, but because there's so I mean, is he one of the top 15 players in the league? He's like that 14 to 16 range, maybe he's higher, but I feel like that gives him like he gets the nod over some players. However, right, I don't know if I think LeBron this year should get an all NBA nod only because he is getting up there. Like it had to end, the streak had to end. And I bet on a 40-year-old getting an all NBA nod, I probably wouldn't, right? But I just think that I I like it, but I don't. But I'm leaning towards not liking it as well because I think like Isaiah Stewart is a good example. Like I think he just missed a few games because he was injured, but now with this suspension, he can't get the defensive team anymore. And I think he could have made it because I think he's doing it. I mean, the Detroit Pistons are doing a great job in general, but I think he is as well. So I understand what the league was trying to do. I think that it's unfortunate with injuries. I think it's a long season. I think only missing 65 games with 82, like a little over 20, not even 20 games, 18 games. I think that's not enough, especially when you have like you said, Shaun, like a sprained ankle and you take 2 weeks off, and that might be the busiest 2 weeks that you have in like the first quarter of the season, and you miss 16 games just right like those 2.5, 3 weeks. And so I think that it should be lowered a little bit, but there should be a limit, I do believe, but maybe not 65 games.
Yeah, because you had a guy like LeBron. The reason why he's in this position is because for the first time in his career, he was not healthy enough to start an NBA season. And so it took a little bit more time for him to get started. I think about a guy like Jason Tatum. Even though Jason Tatum has now missed more than half of this season, it's because he got injured in the playoffs and he tore his Achilles in the playoffs, in the second round of the playoffs. So yeah, it's going to take him basically a full season to come back. We're wondering if he's even going to come back this season. But imagine if Jason Tatum got hurt at the beginning of last season. As Toddy leans into the camera and looks right at Alex as their fellow Boston fans. But when I think about a guy like Jason Tatum, like imagine if he got hurt at the beginning of last season or in the middle of last season. And so he wasn't going to be ready to return by the beginning of this season if that were the case. But then he comes in like a month and a half into the season, 2 months into the season. And at that point, he's missed 20 games. But then he has the best season of his career, and he's also the best player in the NBA. He's not eligible for the MVP at that point, even though he's coming off of what used to be career-ending injury, and to come back and not only be back to form, but to be even better. I think of a guy like Kevin Durant, who did that when he was in Brooklyn. And so that's where the rule, as you guys said, the intentions were good when the rule was put into place, but we got to find a way to kind of reshape this a little bit because of those situations that play out. And so it's really interesting. And the last thing I'll say about this is that I think about a guy like Victor Wembanyama. What if Big Vic, he has an injury like last year, he had blood clots that took him out for the rest of the season. But I think about him as arguably the best player in the NBA when it comes to his defensive ability. He could win Defensive Player of the Year every year. And it's because he is the best. But if he's not playing to that minimum, then he's not even eligible. And so it's interesting, and we will continue to debate about it here on Stats Over Politics. We got one final segment, and it's NFL related. And so with that, Alex, I will bid you adieu and thank you.